I had spent my entire life protecting one secret, one that even my own son, Adrian, never knew. People often assume secrets are heavy because they're dark, but sometimes the heaviest secrets are the ones that shine too brightly. And mine could blind a person. For years, I let the world believe I was an ordinary middle-aged woman scraping by in a modest neighborhood on the quiet side of Ravensbury City. I wore second-hand coats, carried a canvas bag older than my son, and lived in a small apartment with peeling paint and creaky floors. Adrian always assumed I was just a low-paid office clerk somewhere downtown. He had no idea. I earned nearly $40,000 every single month. He had no idea. I had been a top executive at a global conglomerate for 2 decades, negotiating deals worth more than some politicians handled in their lifetimes. He had no idea that the woman he called Mom was responsible for decisions that shaped thousands of lives across continents. No one knew. And that was intentional. I lived quietly. I ate simply. I invested silently. True power, I learned long ago, was not loud. It was patient, observant, hidden. And that secret would have stayed buried forever, if not for a single phone call. It was a Tuesday afternoon when Adrian called. Something in his voice instantly unsettled me. It was the tone he used when he was nervous, when he felt cornered, when he was a little boy afraid of disappointing me. "Mom, I need a favor," he began, clearing his throat. "Leah's parents are visiting from out of the country. They want to meet you." I froze. Leah, my daughter-in-law, came from a wealthy, image-obsessed family. Her parents, the Prestons, owned luxury properties around the world. They dressed in designer clothes even when buying groceries. Everything about them screamed privilege. And now, they wanted to meet me? "Did you tell them anything about me?" I asked, my voice steady but my heart already tightening. A long silence. Then softly, I told them you work an office job, that you live simply, that you don't have much." There it was. Not a dagger. Daggers are sudden. This was a slow blade, one pushed gently yet painfully deep. Simple. He used the word simple. That word said so much more than he realized. I swallowed, the emotions rising in my chest. "All right, Adrian," I answered calmly. "I'll be there." But the moment I hung up, one thought echoed loud and clear. I need to see how they'll treat me when they think I'm poor. Not to punish them. Not yet. But to understand them. To confirm a suspicion I had about Leah's family, one that had gnawed at me since the wedding. People reveal their truest selves not when facing someone powerful, but when facing someone powerless. So on Saturday night, I put on the plainest dress in my closet, an oversized, dull blue cotton dress with a frayed collar. I wore old flattened shoes. I tied my hair back without care and left my jewelry in a drawer. I looked in the mirror and saw a woman the world would easily underestimate. Perfect. The restaurant they chose was in the upscale district of Ember Lane, a place where even the menu font feels expensive. The type of restaurant wealthy people love to use as a measuring stick for others. As the taxi approached the glowing entrance, I felt a strange mixture of dread and anticipation twisting inside me. A tiny part of me hoped I was wrong about them, but the part of me forged in corporate warfare, the part that had survived betrayals, power plays, and boardroom predators, knew exactly what was coming. I stepped inside. Adrian spotted me first. His expression fell. Then Leah. Her thin smile trembled. Then, finally, her parents Vera and Lionel Preston, lavishly dressed, dripping with jewels, staring at me as if they were looking at an unexpected stain on an expensive carpet. From that moment, I knew the night would be unforgettable, just not in the way they expected. What Leah's parents said to me in those first 5 minutes, no mother should ever have to hear. And it was only the beginning of the humiliation they had planned. The Mater D led me toward a long, elegantly set table near the window, crystal glasses, gold-rimmed plates, silver cutlery polished bright enough to reflect every flaw on a person's face. Leah's parents were already seated, their posture straight, their expressions sharper than the knives beside their plates. Vera Preston was the first to look at me. Her gaze traveled from my worn shoes to my faded dress, then to my plain tote bag. She didn't bother hiding her disappointment. Her lips curled slightly as if something smelled wrong. Lionel, her husband, gave a polite but hollow smile. A smile meant for waiters or hotel bellboys, not for family. I approached slowly, letting my shoulders slump just a bit more, playing the role they expected to see. Adrian rose quickly, trying to mask his panic. "Mum, I'm glad you made it." Leah stood too, offering me a stiff cheek kiss. "Hi, Mrs. Harley," she murmured, not meeting my eyes. "Mrs. Harley. Not Lydia. Not Mom. Just formal. Distant." I nodded gently and took the empty seat farthest from them. The seat of someone unimportant. No one moved to help me pull the chair. Not even my son. The waiter placed heavy menus in front of us. French names. Fancy descriptions. No prices listed. I pretended to struggle reading them, squinting a little. Exactly as I needed. Vera watched me the way one watches a slow animal crossing the road. "Do you need help with the menu?" she asked, her tone overly sweet, dripping with the kind of sugar used to cover venom. "Yes, please," I answered softly. "I'm not familiar with these dishes." Her eyebrows lifted. "Oh, I see." Then to the waiter, "Something simple for her. Nothing too pricey." The words hit exactly as she intended. A barely concealed insult. A public declaration that I didn't belong here. Lionel added casually, "Yes, something gentle on the bill." Adrian flinched. Leah stared down at her napkin. I just smiled faintly, watching them all, memorizing every reaction. Small talk began, if you could call it that. Vera draped her sequined shawl over her shoulders and leaned forward. "We flew in from Monaco yesterday. The flight was unbearable. First-class seats aren't what they used to be." Lionel nodded. "We almost switched airlines. The champagne they served wasn't properly chilled." I murmured, "That must have been difficult." "It was," Vera continued dramatically. "Traveling is exhausting when you're accustomed to a certain standard." Her eyes flickered to my plain dress again. Then came the next hit. "So Lydia," Vera said, smoothing her napkin elegantly, "Adrian told us you work in some sort of office?" "A small clerical job, yes." The way she said clerical, as if it were a disease. I kept my expression gentle. "I help with paperwork and organize files. Just small things." Lionel chuckled under his breath. "Good. Honest work," he said softly. "Not everyone can aim high." Adrian's jaw tightened. Leah kept twisting her napkin like she wished she could disappear. I lowered my eyes. "I do what I can." "That's good," Vera replied. "It's admirable to survive on a tight income. Truly admirable." Her tone made the word survive sound like cruel. She lifted her wine glass, ruby red, swirling inside. "This bottle is from a vineyard in Tuscany. 300, but worth every penny. You can really taste the quality." Then she turned to me with exaggerated kindness. "Do you drink wine, Lydia?" "Only on special occasions," I murmured. "And usually whatever's cheapest." Vera's smile wide and victorious. "Of course, not everyone has the palate for finer things," Lionel added, "or the budget." Adrian shut his eyes briefly. Leah's shoulders stiffened, but the insults didn't stop there. Not even close. "So tell me," Vera continued, tapping her fork against her plate, Do you manage all right living alone on such a small salary? It must be challenging at your age. There it was, the ugly assumption, the condescending pity, the casual cruelty. I breathed in slowly and answered, I manage. I don't need much. Vera nodded sympathetically, fake sympathy. Oh, that's good. We've always believed people should know their limits. If she had stabbed me with her fork, it would have been gentler, and they hadn't even begun their real agenda yet. Because while they mocked my clothes and my life, something else was coming, a proposal so insulting that even Adrian would reach his breaking point. The Prestons thought insulting me was enough, but then they made me an offer meant to erase me from my son's life forever. Dinner continued with the same rhythm. Vera and Lionel boasting, Leah shrinking into silence, Adrian trying to keep the peace, and me quiet, watching, waiting. Every comment they made was a thinly wrapped insult, a reminder of where they believed I belonged. But I let every jab land because the truth hadn't been revealed yet. The waiter placed dessert menus on the table, each one heavy enough to feel like a book. Vera didn't even bother reading hers. Toffee Broly, she announced proudly. It's the most expensive one. The gold leaf topping is divine. Her dessert cost more than my entire outfit. Or so she believed. Leah ordered something small. Adrian skipped dessert entirely, claiming he wasn't hungry. I ordered whatever Vera suggested wouldn't cost too much. She seemed pleased with herself. Savoring the attention, Vera cleared her throat dramatically, placed her hand on Lionel's and gave me a serious, almost maternal expression. Lydia, she began, now that we're all together, we think it's important to discuss something. As a family. Adrian stiffened. Leah lowered her head. Lionel sat up straighter, like a judge about to deliver a verdict. I folded my hands and stayed silent, letting her continue. Adrian is our only son-in-law, Vera said sweetly, and we adore him. Truly. Leah loves him deeply, and we want them to have the best future possible. She gave a small nod as though everything she was about to say came from a place of pure love. But, she continued, a successful marriage requires stability, emotional and financial stability. I waited, and Lionel added, we want to make sure Adrian isn't burdened with extra responsibilities. Responsibilities that could strain their marriage. There it was, the beginning of the real insult. Vera leaned forward, lowering her voice as though sharing a secret. You live alone, Lydia. You work a modest job. And at your age, life can get unpredictable. Adrian's head jerked up. Mom is fine, he said sharply. But Vera raised her manicured hand. Of course she is. For now. But worries linger in a son's mind. Naturally, Adrian feels responsible for you. She looked at me with a mix of pity and superiority. And we believe those worries shouldn't interfere with his marriage. I tilted my head, my voice soft. And, what are you suggesting? Lionel cleared his throat. We'd like to help you. Vera nodded enthusiastically. Yes, we want to give you a small monthly allowance. Something modest, of course, but enough to help you live comfortably. The insult landed exactly as intended. A bribe. A payment. A financial leash wrapped around my neck. And in exchange, she continued, smiling gently, we ask for something very simple. I already knew, but I wanted her to say it. We ask that you give Adrian and Leah space, Vera said sweetly. Let them live their lives without feeling obligated to support you. Try not to involve yourself too frequently. Don't rely on him emotionally or financially. Just allow them the freedom young couples need. Lionel added, you'd still see them, just not excessively. Adrian's face turned red. Leah bit her lip hard enough to leave a mark. I sat still for a moment, every insult echoing inside me. They wanted to pay me to disappear, to erase my presence, to turn me into a ghost at the edges of my son's life. How much is this allowance? I asked. Vera exchanged a quick look with Lionel before saying lightly, "We were thinking $500 or $700 if absolutely necessary." A number so small, yet the disrespect behind it so enormous. Adrian slammed his palm against the table. "Enough! You can't talk to my mother like this." But Vera kept her eyes on me, ignoring her own daughter's shame, ignoring Adrian's anger, ignoring everything except her illusion of superiority. "Well?" she asked. "Do you accept our offer, Lydia?" I took a slow breath. In that moment, the version of myself they saw, the fragile woman, the poor mother, the burden began to fade away. The real me was about to step forward, and they had absolutely no idea what storm they were waking up. My answer to their offer didn't just shock them, it shattered the entire dinner table and exposed the truth I have kept hidden for decades. Vera's question lingered in the air like smoke. "Do you accept our offer, Lydia?" Her voice was calm, but her eyes carried the cold expectancy of someone certain she had the upper hand. Lionel leaned back, arms crossed, confident. Leah looked ready to sink into the floor. Adrian's fists were clenched so tightly, the knuckles had turned white. I gently placed my napkin down, folded it once, and let a faint smile touch my lips. "That is a very generous offer," I murmured. Vera brightened instantly, mistaking my calm for submission. "I'm glad you understand." "But," I said softly, cutting her off, "I do have a few questions." Vera blinked. "Oh, of course." I sat up straighter, not slumped, not timid, but poised. Still mild in tone, but now deliberate, controlled. "First," I said, "exactly how much were you planning to give me?" "The full amount, not the range." Vera hesitated. "Well, 700 a month." I nodded slowly. $700 a month, in exchange for me disappearing. "I wouldn't phrase it that way," Lionel said stiffly, though that's exactly what he meant. "Oh," I asked, tilting my head. "Then how would you phrase it?" Silence. Their carefully crafted excuses evaporated. "Second question," I continued. "How much did you contribute to Adrian and Leah when they married?" Vera straightened proudly. $40,000 for the house down payment," she said, "and $15,000 for the honeymoon." "So," I recapped politely, "around $55,000? "Yes," Lionel replied. "We help our children. That's what good parents do." I nodded again, thoughtful. Then I leaned slightly forward, resting my elbows on the table. "And did that money buy you respect?" I asked quietly. The words landed like a knife. Vera's smile vanished. "Excuse me? Did it buy you respect?" I repeated. "Or just obedience?" For the first time, Vera's confidence faltered. Her jeweled hand trembled slightly. Adrian lipped between us, stunned. Leah stared at me as if seeing me clearly for the first time. "You've spent all evening talking about money," I continued. "How much your wine costs, how expensive your hotel is, how much you spent on your daughter. Yet," I gestured around the table, "not once have you asked me who I am, what I've lived through, what I've faced." Lionel stiffened. "This has nothing to do with. It has everything to do with it." My voice sharpened, not loud, but sharp enough to cut through their arrogance. "You measured my worth the second I walked through the door. You measured it by my dress, my bag, my shoes, by everything you thought made me small. And you decided my value was $700 a month." Vera swallowed. Leah covered her mouth. Adrian stared at me, realization dawning. But you never asked, I said. What I do. What I've accomplished. What I've built. Vera tried to regain control. Wow. You said you work in an office. I do, I replied. I also run 5 departments, oversee thousands of employees, and make decisions that affect operations in multiple countries. Lionel narrowed his eyes. What exactly are you saying? I leaned back, letting the truth settle with controlled precision. I am the Senior Regional Director of Tideway International, I said. I've held that position for almost 20 years. And my monthly salary is just under $40,000. 4 simple sentences, but they detonated like explosives. Adrian's fork slipped from his hand and clattered onto his plate. Leah gasped. Lionel's mouth fell open. And Vera froze completely, her eyes wide, her face drained of color. 40,000? She whispered. Per month, I confirmed calmly. Not including bonuses, or stocks, or investments. A thick, stunned silence took over the table. For the first time all evening, Vera didn't have a single word to say. I looked at her gently. So tell me, I asked softly, do you still believe I need $700 a month from you? Vera's lips quivered. Lionel stared at the table, unable to meet my gaze. Leah looked mortified. Adrian looked heartbroken because he had never asked, never imagined. I lifted my water glass and took a slow sip. And that, I said quietly, was me answering your offer. But the shock had only begun. Because the moment I revealed who I truly was, the Prestons panicked and their panic exposed their darkest fear. The air inside the restaurant had shifted. A moment ago, Vera and Lionel Preston were perched like royalty, confident and untouchable. Now, they sat stiff and stunned, like their expensive chairs had suddenly turned to ice. Lionel cleared his throat, but no sound came out. Vera opened her mouth twice, trying to gather a sentence, yet every word she attempted dissolved before it could form. Adrian stared at me as if trying to recognize a woman he'd never completely seen. Mom, he whispered. Why didn't you ever tell me? I turned to him. Because I wanted you to grow into your own life, not feel overshadowed by mine. Leah exhaled shakily, hands trembling on her napkin. She wasn't angry, she was embarrassed. Not because of me, but because of what her parents had done. Finally, Lionel found his voice. Lydia, if that's true, then we misunderstood things. Misunderstood? The single word slipped out of me like quiet thunder. Vera recovered slightly and forced a shaky smile. We didn't mean to offend you. We only wanted to help. By bribing me to distance myself from my own son. I asked gently, though the softness in my tone held steel. Vera winced. That's not what it is exactly what you meant, I said. Silence spread again, heavy, suffocating, unavoidable. I studied them, both of them. They weren't arrogant anymore. They were scared, desperate. And that shift told me one thing. Their behavior wasn't just about belittling me. It was about protecting something. Tell me something, I said quietly, looking directly at Vera. Why were you so determined to push me out of Adrian's life? Vera froze. Lionel shifted uncomfortably. Leah's eyes widened. She hadn't expected that question either. I continued, voice steady. You judged me the moment I walked in. The dress, the bag, the shoes, everything. Yet your desperation to keep me at a distance. That isn't how people act when they simply look down on someone. That's fear. Lionel straightened abruptly. We're not afraid of you. But his voice cracked on the last word. I leaned forward slightly. You both knew Adrian would never accept your offer unless he believed I needed help. So you tried to make me look weak, helpless, dependent. Vera swallowed again. Hard. I could see the panic rising in her eyes. And that, I said softly, means you were trying to control something. But what? Adrian finally looked at them, really looked at them. Mom's right. What are you hiding? Vera's fingers tightened around her wineglass stem. Nothing, she whispered. Then why? I asked gently. Were you willing to pay to keep me away? Lionel shook his head, that his expression gave him away. Fear, raw, unmistakable fear. Leah's voice finally broke through the tension. Dad, Mom, what's going on? Via's eyes darted between her daughter and her husband, her breathing uneven. I softened my expression. I'm not here to humiliate anyone, but I am not blind. And when people panic like this, it's because the truth threatens them. Lionel slammed his hand lightly against the table, not in anger, but frustration. This has gone far enough. Then he looked at Adrian, at Leah, then at me. What we're trying to protect, he said stiffly, is our daughter's future. I kept my gaze steady. What future, Lionel? And why would my present someone you believe to be poor ruin it? His jaw clenched. Because we didn't want you to think Adrian needed financial support from us. We didn't want you asking questions about our businesses. Ah, there it was. Something deeper. Something they didn't want exposed. What businesses? Adrian asked sharply. You told us everything was stable. Vera's hands trembled. We didn't tell you everything. Lionel muttered. Not here. But it was too late. They had already revealed the truth. The Prestons weren't the wealthy, untouchable elites they pretended to be. They were drowning financially, maybe legally, and they feared I might uncover it. I leaned back slowly, connecting the pieces. You tried to buy me off, I said quietly, because you thought I would see through you, because you thought someone poor might stay silent, that someone powerful would notice the cracks. Vera's lips parted in shock. Lionel's eyes dropped. And Adrian? He looked betrayed. Mom, Adrian whispered. What do we do now? I folded my hands calmly. We let them talk, I said. Because whatever they've been hiding, it's time for the truth to come out. The Prestons finally confessed, but what they revealed wasn't just shocking. It threatened to pull Adrian and Leah's entire marriage apart. For several long seconds, no one spoke. The restaurant around us carried on with quiet, elegant, soft violin music, gentle murmurs, clinking glasses, but our table felt like a sealed chamber, where the air had turned sharp and heavy. Lionel wiped sweat from his forehead with a napkin. His confidence had completely crumbled. Vera sat frozen, shoulders trembling under her glittering shawl. Adrian leaned forward. Dad, Mom, what is going on? It's complicated, Lionel whispered. It always is, I replied softly. Start at the beginning. Vera's voice cracked. We didn't want you involved in this. Too late, Leah said quietly. Lionel looked at his daughter, then at me, and something inside him broke. He exhaled shakily and lowered his voice. Our businesses aren't doing well, he finally admitted. Not anymore. Adrian frowned. But you always said everything was thriving. That was years ago, Lionel muttered. Tourism dropped. Investors pulled out. And then, the taxes. Vera squeezed her eyes shut, ashamed. We're drowning, Lydia. We've been drowning for a long time. Not arrogance. Not superiority. Fear. They weren't trying to push me away because I was poor. They were trying to protect themselves from being exposed, judged, investigated. What kind of trouble? I asked. Lionel hesitated, then exhaled deeply, defeated. Debt, large amounts. Loans we shouldn't have taken. And we're behind on payments. Very behind. How behind? Leah asked. Lionel didn't answer. Vera did. 6 months, she whispered. Leah gasped. Six months? Mum, that's a disaster, Lionel finished. I looked between them carefully. So you assumed that if I was a struggling, powerless woman, I wouldn't notice anything? Lionel nodded slowly. Exactly. If you believed we were wealthy and generous, you'd have no reason to look into our affairs. And if I stayed close to Adrian, I added, you feared he'd eventually learn the truth. Vera wilted. We just wanted stability for Leah. For both of them. Adrian shook his head, disbelief all over his face. You were ashamed to tell us. We were, Vera whispered. We didn't want Leah's marriage to begin on secrets. Yet you built it on one, Leah said, tears forming. Vera's lip trembled. We know, and we hate ourselves for it. Silence tightened around us again. I studied them not with judgment, not with scorn, but with a strange, quiet understanding. For years, people had tried to use money to control me, manipulate me, or bury me under expectations. The Prestons were no different except their arrogance had been a shield, not a weapon. You didn't need to push me away, I said gently. You only needed to be honest. Lionel's eyes welled. We've never been honest with anyone. Not even each other. Vera covered her face with both hands. We lied because we were terrified of becoming nothing. Leah whispered, You're our parents, not trophies. Lionel looked at me then straight, raw, vulnerable. We underestimated you. But worse, we underestimated our own daughter and son-in-law. Adrian ran a hand through his hair, overwhelmed. So what now? If you're in this deep, you need help. Lionel stiffened. We didn't come for help. But you need it, Adrian said firmly. Vera shook her head desperately. We didn't want to ruin your life too. Adrian, you work so hard. Leah is still early in her career. We didn't want you too burdened with our failures. I softened. Secrets only become burdens when you force people to carry them alone. Lionel swallowed. But what if we lose everything? I looked at him steadily. Then you rebuild. With honesty this time. The weight in the air began to shift slowly, painfully, from confrontation to truth. But we were far from done. Does anyone else know about your situation? I asked quietly. Lionel hesitated. Then, we lied to our investors too. They're threatening action. Legal action. My stomach dropped. This wasn't just debt. This wasn't just poor decisions. This was a financial collapse with legal consequences. Leah inhaled sharply. Dad, how bad is it? He opened his mouth and closed it. And that single hesitation said everything. I folded my hands slowly. You don't just need help. You need protection. Vera's eyes flooded with tears. Lydia, what do we do? What they needed wasn't money. It was strategy. A way out. And someone who couldn't be manipulated or intimidated. Someone like me. I took a deep breath. I said, You tell me everything. But the full truth they revealed after that wasn't just shocking, it was dangerous. And it dragged Adrian and Leah into a crisis far bigger than any of us expected. Lionel and Vera sat rigidly, their perfect manners collapsing into trembling confusion. Their forks lay untouched. The fancy desserts on the table were now melting untouched, just like the facade they had carried for years. Adrian reached for Leah's hand under the table. She didn't pull away this time. They were afraid, both of them, but united by the same question. What exactly were the Prestons hiding? I placed my palms together calmly. Start from the beginning. Not the polite version. The real version. Lionel inhaled shakily and nodded. 8 years ago, he began. I invested heavily in a resort project overseas. It was supposed to be a guaranteed success. We were expecting massive profits. Vera added quietly, we even sold some of our properties to put more money into it. Adrian's eyes widened. You didn't tell anyone. We kept it quiet, Lionel muttered. We were embarrassed. Everyone saw us as wealthy, connected people with a golden touch. We didn't want them to see us gamble. My voice was soft but firm. Did the project fail? Lionel chuckled, but it wasn't a laugh, it was a broken, defeated sound. It collapsed before it even launched. Scandals. Corruption. The people we trusted vanished. Vera wrung her hands. We lost millions. Leah covered her mouth, stunned. Millions? But Lionel wasn't finished. That wasn't the worst part, he whispered. What could be worse than that? Leah asked. Lionel hesitated. Then he spoke. We borrowed money to try and recover the losses. My heart sank. From who? He didn't answer. He didn't need to. The look on his face said enough. These weren't regular lenders, were they? I asked. Lionel exhaled, shoulders collapsing. No, they were. Private lenders. Powerful ones. The kind who don't care about legal processes. The kind who make you pay one way or another. Vera squeezed her eyes shut. We told ourselves we'd repay it quickly. That it was just temporary. That Adrian and Leah would never need to know. But, I prompted gently. We couldn't pay it back, Lionel whispered. The interest exploded. They started threatening us. Visits, messages, warnings. Leah looked horrified. Why didn't you tell us? We're your family. Lionel's voice cracked. Because we didn't want you involved with these people. They're not like banks. They don't negotiate. They don't forget. A single tear slid down Vera's cheek. We thought, if we could push you away, Lydia, if you stayed out of the picture, they wouldn't try to use you to get to us. Adrian jolted. Use her? What do you mean? Lionel hesitated a moment too long, and I understood immediately. They know who I am, I said quietly. Every head snapped toward me. Lionel nodded reluctantly. Yes, they do. Everyone in the business world knows your name, Lydia. Even the dangerous ones. Mum, Adrian whispered, fear spilling into his voice. Are you saying those people could try to use you? Threaten you? They might try, I said calmly. But I'm not easily threatened. Lionel leaned forward urgently. We didn't want these people to know you were connected to us. A powerful woman like you, someone with money, influence, they'd see you as a target. A solution. A source of repayment. A cold realization ran through Leah. That's why you wanted her gone, she said softly. Not just because you looked down on her, but because you were afraid of what would happen if she got pulled into this. Vera nodded miserably. Yes, we wanted to protect you. All of you. It was a terrible plan, misguided, arrogant, and rooted in shame, but not malicious. They had acted out of fear, not hatred. Still, the consequences were real. Lionel, I said firmly, how much do you owe these lenders? He looked me dead in the eyes. 800,000. The table went silent. Adrian whispered, 800,000? Yes, Lionel rasped. And the deadline? I asked. Lionel swallowed. 1 month. Leah gasped. 1 month? Dad, that's impossible. Vera trembled violently. They said if we don't pay, they'll take other forms of compensation. We don't know what that means. I did. And it wasn't good. Adrian looked terrified. Mom, what do we do? I breathed in slowly, letting my mind switch into the mode I had ruled corporate empires with. Sharp, strategic, fearless. What we do, I said. is take control of this situation. Vera stared at me desperate. Lydia, can you help us? I looked at each of them, Adrian, Leah, Lionel, Vera. Helping them meant stepping into danger. It meant facing ruthless people. It meant exposing myself, but it also meant protecting my son's future. And I would protect him with everything I had. Before I decide, I said quietly, I need one thing from you. What? Lionel whispered. I leaned forward. The name of the man you owe. Lionel closed his eyes. Then he whispered the name. And when I heard it, I felt the blood drain from my face. Because the man they owed money to was someone from my own past. Someone I'd hoped never to cross paths with again. When Lionel whispered the name, it struck me like a physical blow. Elian Merrick. The world around me blurred for a moment. The soft violin, the restaurant murmurs, the clinking glasses, all of it faded behind the echo of that name. Adrian noticed the shift instantly. Mom, are you okay? I forced myself to inhale, steadying the tremor in my hands before it could show. Yes, I murmured. I just didn't expect that name. Vera watched me nervously. You know him? Know him? I once knew him too well. He used to be a consultant, I said carefully. A financial strategist. Brilliant, ruthless. The kind of man who could turn a failing business around or drown it further if it served him. Lionel nodded. That's him. But he's not a consultant anymore. No, I whispered. He's something far more dangerous now. Adrian frowned. Mum, what happened between you two? I didn't want to revisit that past, not tonight. Not in front of my already shaken family. But I had no choice. They needed to understand the kind of danger that now circled them. Elian used to work under me, I said quietly. 12 years ago. He was sharp, ambitious, but unpredictable. Leah leaned in, wide-eyed. Unpredictable how? He believed every rule was bendable, I explained. That legality was optional. That ethics were weaknesses. To him, business was a battlefield. People were pawns. Lionel swallowed. That sounds familiar. Yes, I said. Because that's who he became. After he was fired. Vera gasped. You fired him? I had to, I replied. He manipulated client data to push a deal through. Risked our reputation. When I confronted him, he said, I paused off. Adrian gently urged. What did he say? That one day, I whispered, I'd regret humiliating him. Vera covered her mouth. Oh no. Leah looked between her parents and me. So now he's involved in this. Lending money illegally? Threatening people? Lionel nodded grimly. He runs a network of private lenders. They pretend to be legitimate investors, but they're collectors, dangerous ones. He has people everywhere, and he controls them, I finished. Yes, Lionel whispered. And if we don't pay that debt in a month, he said he'll start liquidating assets. We think that means you. Vera shuddered violently. The pieces fit together too perfectly. Elian's rise, his methods, his need for control, his grudge against me. And now, the Prestons owed him nearly $1 million. This wasn't coincidence. It was a web. Adrian's voice was barely steady. Mom, can he come after us? After Leah and me? I turned to him slowly. Yes, if he thinks it will get him the money or revenge. Leah squeezed Adrian's arm. This is our fault. We should have known something was wrong. No, I said gently. You trusted your parents. That's not a crime. Lionel swallowed thickly. Lydia, you said earlier that you might be able to help us. I can, I replied. But dealing with Elian is not simple. He doesn't negotiate through fear. He uses it. Vera looked desperate. Then what hope do we have? I took a slow breath. There is one way, I said. But it's dangerous. And it means confronting him directly. Lionel's voice shook. Directly? Yes. Vera panicked immediately. Lydia, no, he knows who you are. He'll use that against you. He'll twist it. Let him try, I said. My voice calm but sharp. Adrian leaned forward, fear and admiration mixing in his eyes. Mum, you're not seriously thinking of meeting him yourself? I am, Leah whispered. But why would you put yourself in danger? I looked at Adrian, my son, the boy I raised alone, the young man trying to build a life with the woman he loved. Because I will not let his past mistake destroy your future. Their eyes softened, but fear still lingered. However, I added, before anything happens, we need information. What kind of information? Lionel asked. The details of every loan document you signed, I said. Every message, every threat, every signature. I need to know his entire leverage. Vera nodded slowly. We have the papers. At home. Good, I said. Gather everything. We'll meet tomorrow. Lionel hesitated. Lydia, if you go to him, he may try to intimidate you. I smiled faintly. He's forgotten something important, I said. I trained him. I know exactly how he thinks. But even as I spoke those steady words, something dark stirred in my stomach, a feeling I hadn't felt in years. Because confronting Ellie and Marek meant reopening a door I had locked away long ago. And I had no idea what waited on the other side. The next morning, when we reached the Prestons' home to collect the documents, we discovered something terrifying. Someone had already been there. The next morning arrived colder than usual. The sky dull and grey, as if warning us of what was coming. Adrian drove. Leah sat beside him in silence, her fingers tightly laced together. I sat in the back seat, watching the Prestons' upscale neighbourhood grow closer. Luxury houses, tall iron gates, manicured lawns. It all looked peaceful on the surface. But I knew better. People with the most polished fronts often hid the deepest cracks. When we reached the Prestons' home, Lionel and Vera were already standing outside, waiting. They both looked exhausted, as though neither had slept. Vera held her shawl tightly around her shoulders despite the mild weather. As soon as we stepped out of the car, Lionel rushed to us. Lydia, something's wrong. My heartbeat immediately quickened. What happened? Vera pointed toward the front door. We left everything exactly where it was last night. The loan documents were in my desk drawer. Locked. But this morning, she couldn't finish. Adrian stepped forward. Show us. We entered the house. At first glance, everything looked normal. Perfect even. The living room was spotless. The floors gleamed. The scent of expensive candles hung in the air. But the moment we walked into Lionel's home office, the illusion shattered. The desk drawer was open. Papers were scattered on the floor. The lock had been forced open with something sharp. Leah gasped. Adrian froze. Lionel whispered, We didn't touch anything. We saw this and called you immediately. I stepped closer, scanning the room, not just the scattered files, but the subtle details others might miss. A boot print near the rug. The faint smell of cologne that didn't belong to Lionel. A single business card placed on the desk. A card I recognized instantly. Black. Embossed. Minimalist. Ellie and Marek's signature calling card. I picked it up, feeling a surge of cold fire rush through my chest. He was here, I said quietly. Vera pressed a trembling hand to her mouth. Dear God! How did he get in? He doesn't ask permission, I replied. If he wants something, he takes it. Leah's voice shook. Why would he leave a card? Why not hide the break-in? I turned the card over. A single handwritten note. We should catch up, Lydia. Lunch tomorrow. You know where? Adrian stepped closer, reading over my shoulder. Mom, what does that mean? It means, I said slowly, that this isn't just about the Prestons' debt anymore. Lionel dropped into a chair, face pale. He's targeting all of us. He's targeting me, I corrected. Always has. Now he's just making it personal. A deep silence filled the room, heavier than any we had felt before. I crouched and picked up the scattered documents. Some were missing pages. Some were torn. Some had new notes scribbled in the margins, his handwriting, not Lionel's. A psychological game. Elian's specialty. He wants control, I murmured. And he wants me involved. Adrian's voice was sharp with fear. But why now? After all these years? Because he sees an opportunity, I replied. The Prestons' debt gives him leverage. And forcing me into this gives him the confrontation he's always wanted. Leah wrapped her arms around herself. Mum, are you going to meet him? I stood up slowly. Yes. Vera shook her head, horrified. Lydia, no. He's dangerous. You can't go alone. I won't be alone, I said. But I do need to face him. If we don't end this now, he will keep tightening the noose around your family. Lionel looked desperate. What if he hurts you? What if he hurts any of us? A chill ran down my spine, but I pushed it aside. This isn't a man who responds to fear. He responds to power. He must see that I am not the same woman he once worked under. And I will not be intimidated. Adrian moved toward me. Mom, we're coming with you. I placed a hand on his shoulder. No, this is between him and me. You three stay here. Lock the doors. Don't go anywhere. Leah looked terrified. What if he comes back? He won't, I said, holding up the card. He already got what he came for. What did he come for? Vera asked. I stared at the message in my hand. Not the documents, I said. He came for this moment. For me to know he's watching. Adrian swallowed hard. Mum, what are you planning? I exhaled slowly. Ending something I should have ended 12 years ago. Their eyes widened, fear mixing with trust. I walked toward the door, tucking the card into my coat pocket. Tomorrow, I said quietly, I meet Elian, and this time I decide how the story ends. But what waited at that lunch meeting? The unexpected alliance, the betrayal, and the final twist would change all of our lives forever. If you liked the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story with love and respect.